It took me some time to read 50 Cent's newest book, Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. And out of all the hours, 8 hours and 16 minutes to be exact, that it took me walking around my neighborhood, absorbing and taking in what 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson had to say, I decided to come up with the 50 best takeaways from reading his book. And Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter couldn't have been a better title. These are 50 spoiler-free reasons why you should listen to the book. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It's the Reasonable Dose. Stay tuned. So the first thing I was surprised at was 50 goes into the deals that he's had with artists and the relationships he's had with them over the years. He even goes into marriage and divorce. And I'm thinking, what does this have to do with Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter? But point one, 50 covers it all. 50 also covered a pretty somber moment, I think. It was his mom's passing. He was really young when that happened. I mean, young. He was in that age where moms should not leave the lives of their children at that age. That's the weird part. And how 50 was able to bounce back from something like that, I think that was pretty cool. The third reason, 50 goes into how real or fake he actually thinks Drake is. And I'm thinking, 50, you're gonna talk about in great detail one of the leading artists in the industry right now, but I guess you were never shy. That's my third lesson. Don't be shy to say what's on your mind. His evaluations on how Drake is or isn't, praise and critique all at the same time a current artist as big as Drake. But 50's big in his own right. So, small fish, big pond, big fish, small pond, doesn't seem to matter to 50. I was walking by this visitor sign. I get to thinking about Tupac. Just as 50 mentions him in the book, he's talking about Tupac. And he's been dead for, I don't know, feels like 20 years at this point. I feel like it is 20 years. I love Tupac. Tupac was actually my favorite rapper. That's why my ears perked up so much when 50 brought up Tupac. He goes into a little bit, no spoilers, of how different Tupac actually might have been in his core versus the persona that he wanted to show us in his music. And how 50 actually thinks that could have had something to do with what led to Tupac's ultimate demise. Point 5. 50 goes into why one of his best songs that he thought actually didn't do as good as he thought it might on the charts. But he goes into really specific reasons for why he thought the song was going to do good and then why it ultimately failed. To have that sort of hindsight and want to go back, that's one of my next lessons that I learned from 50. Don't be afraid to look back, because I think when you look back and you learn from those mistakes, that's where all the growth is. 50 even goes into diversifying himself. That's point 6. He diversified himself in both business and in the music industry and just overall in general. It's like that's why he's 50 Cent and Curtis Jackson. And number 7, managing the self-contained alter egos that we all have is just a level of self-mastery. I don't have that yet. Sometimes I'm the bull in the china shop, but I'm also a bull in the pillow factory. I'm a bull at home. Maybe I'm a bull when I parent sometimes. 50 really helped me in the book figure out how I can make sure I am the best version of me, regardless of situation. When was it time for him to be 50 and when was it time for him to be Curtis? He definitely went into that in the book. I love him for that. I think 50 also taught me that we want to quit the childish games and get it in writing. That was point 8. He goes into a story about how he didn't put something in writing and what it cost him in both time, money, and effort. Maybe even cost him friendships. Jeez. No more games. Well, later. 50 also goes into how to manage family, friends, and an entourage. And I'm thinking, okay, so aside from G-Unit, vitamin water, and anything else he had going on, and he's trying to top the charts, he's got to manage family and an entourage? I mean, I feel like that would be easy. 50 let me know why I was wrong about that. That's my ninth point. He even touches on the story when the entourage itself actually turns on each other and what he had to do in the middle of it. Oops. I couldn't believe all the things that 50 has gone through in the ways that he was able to handle these situations with poise, not always, but then how he was able to grow into being the most responsible version of himself that he could. Gives me a lot to aim for. That's point 9. 50 goes into the unique relationship he formed with the Starz Network with his hit show Power. He actually lets you know a little bit of how the deal worked in the beginning versus how it ultimately ended up. Letting you know again in point 14, it's all about the long game. And speaking of Power, and one of the lead actors, this is as much as I'll give you, gotta read the book for the rest. One of the lead actors actually needed to be convinced of something by both 50 and Curtis. Hearing him tell it in his own words, I'm like, to think that this show likely wouldn't have been made because this key person that I grew to love and hate, then love again, then hate, this key actor might not have been a part of it. I'm so glad 50 took the time to make sure that that didn't happen. Pay attention to the long game. Guess that's 50's point 13. Or is it 14? Oops. And first off, 50 Cent had a label. I think there's probably like, I don't know, if I had to guess, maybe there's 300 people that have had labels, and maybe only 20 of those have actually been really, really successful to the level that 50 was with, I think, G-Unit Records, right? 50 discusses the artists, like specific names that were signed to his label, and what happened with those guys. I don't think he touched on any girls. I mean, guys that we thought we would see around for a very, very long time. 50 talked about his long game plan for how he was going to set those guys up and what they were ultimately going to do as he began to step away. Did you know that? He was actually moving in other directions, and he was trying to set up a structure that could live on without him in G-Unit Records. A lot of people, me included maybe at one point or another, thought that 50's ego was maybe so inflated that he would want to always be the one holding the mic. But man, that's the hustle smarter part that 50 was letting us know about. He actually was setting people up to take his crown, or at least he was going to slice his crown in half and anoint a lot of other people. It's a shame some of them didn't actually follow through with what 50 wanted, because I can see the plan now, and boy, he was setting you up. In point 16, he describes a statement or parable, some parables or statements we've all heard before. One step at a time. Carpe diem. Hindsight's 20/20. You only live once. But then 50 goes a little bit deeper, like he does on every single other point. And 50 talks about a time that he learned something after doing something for someone and hearing them say some words, because what I've learned and what 50 sort of confirmed for me was people will tell you everything you need to know if you just listen. And he said when he learned this thing from this person that he loved very much, was trying to set up, he knew immediately. And this was one of the artists on his label. He said, I learned right then I should never invest another dollar or a bit of my time with this individual. This individual is a complete waste of my time. No. And he wasn't taking shots, and he wasn't disparaging the person, because the way that he said it, it was so eloquent. He was actually still paying the person respect, but he was acknowledging the realization that he had come to by potentially giving someone something, and their response to that let him know fully, you are not worth my time. And it was just a statement of fact, not a hurtful thing. It was profound to hear him say it in his words. Curtis Jackson is a Cancer, just like I am. I'm not saying I believe in all this astrology stuff, lock, stock, and barrel, but it says something. I'm a Cancer, he's a Cancer, and I sort of like that. I feel like we were kind of cut from the same cloth. As for my next point, it's like point 17, I just really like the fact that Curtis and I are both Cancers. And sometimes you have to find that common thread between you and someone else. And maybe it helps you relate to them a little bit better. I'm not saying it works every time, but it's kind of cool to know that we're both Cancers. How do I look now? How about now? Is this better? How about this? That was just a little bit of point 18. He discussed how he made adjustments based on how the world viewed him, not necessarily how he viewed himself. Now, that introspection is something. It's a prospective introspection on yourself, because If everybody views you as a thug, what might they do in a business meeting with a thug? I don't know. What if you dressed a little bit differently and everyone now treats you different? Sort of like a woman when she dresses with, all the goodies on display.
Whoa.
People think a certain thing. Maybe it's not fair, but hey, I don't make the rules, neither does 50. He just took the world on reality's terms. I think the saying is reality on reality's terms. If I can make it up all 3 steps on one leg. Nope. Not here. All the way up. Kind of made it. Let's do it again. Another time. 3 steps. 1, 2, 3. Shoot. Damn. Failures. I wanted to jump up all 3 of those steps just off 1 foot. Just 1 foot gather up, 1 foot gather up. Failures. I mean, I guess if I did leg day more than once a week, maybe that would have been better. Come on. What the hell? My left is stronger than my right? Who knew? Maybe if you just jump like you got some damn sense. Failures. That was 2 feet. Cheater. Yeah, right. Yeah, his failures just didn't slow him down. It didn't stop him. I don't know why I let mine stop me. Man, I'm glad I read this book. I'm starting to sweat now. This video isn't looking too good just because of that. I wanted to try to present myself in a suave, debonair way. But sometimes life is messy. Sometimes you have to work harder than you wanted to work in front of people that you weren't prepared to maybe see like this. And I have to say that's kind of sort of where I am right now. I could stop this video because I didn't bring a towel.
No.
Or I could just press on. This brings me to point 20. He goes on in the book about how you will open your mind and the tactics he used to help expand his mind. Just with this point, the sun is bright. You can probably see it in my glasses. And it's hot. And it's August. It's in Maryland. I believe it's 88 degrees. I could be what I was before and I could just say I'm not going to do this. There's a hurdle. I decided not to. Thanks for that, Fifth. Which really plays nicely into the next point. Something that 50 got from an actor. That's all I'll give you. I'll give you the gender. It's an actor, not an actress. He said he was with this guy, and he's like,
Fifth, you know what? You're always doing something. And the good thing about you is you just do shit. Just do shit.
And hearing 50 talk about it, the examples that he gives surrounding this, I'm like, that makes all the sense in the world. Just do shit. Get shit done. Just do shit. Put shit behind you. Chalk shit up. Get shit done. Shit. If you just sit on the sidelines and you don't do shit, how can you get shit done? Man, maybe that's why he's got so many failures and so many successes. Because he just does shit. Thanks for that lesson. We gotta get out of this song. Whew. This is a bit better. Ugh. There's no reality, there's only perception. And people's perceptions about you are real. That's point 22. Don't lean in too far or too far away from how you're perceived. 50 even went in to how he can take the perceptions that people have of him and shape it to get him closer to the goal that he has in his mind for himself. Marvelous the way that this guy plays chess through life. Some of us play checkers.
Oh, no.
And I think I'm one of those checker players, or at least I used to be. I'm gonna try my best to come out of that. Point 23. Curtis, or should I say 50, helped me understand and not feel guilty or bad about being different versions of myself. The version of myself that maybe was a little bit procrastinating, or the version of myself that was a little too heavy-handed. The version of myself that used bad tones with people and offended them and hurt their feelings. Am I proud of those things? No. Do I like those things about myself? No, not really. But what was my intention the entire time? My intention was always to help make things better, get a group of people or myself closer and closer to a goal. And that's what I tried to do. But the version of me that was trying to deliver that message didn't always come out the best. So, hey, what can I do? Except be comfortable with that version of me. That was me then, and I'm not that now. And there are people that will still remember who you used to be, and they'll think that's who you still are. And what I learned from the book is, hey, you are gonna believe what you're gonna believe. There's nothing I can do about that. One of my favorite sayings is, the wrapping paper matters. That's what I love to say. Just make sure I'm in focus. That's what I love to say. The wrapping paper matters. Because you could wrap up something, let's say a piece of shit, and you wrap it up with the most beautiful wrapping paper, anointed with the longest ribbon, the best bow, but it's shit at the end of the day. And you know that it's shit, but you want someone to accept this gift. So you present it well. As opposed to, let's say, a tennis bracelet. And if a tennis bracelet comes wrapped to you in, an old comic book strip or supermarket advertisement, you didn't take time to wrap it with any care, then the person that is in receipt of the tennis bracelet might feel a little bit disrespected. They may not want anything to do with it, you, or the gift. Damn a tennis bracelet. So you just want to be careful with how you present yourself, your business, your things, whatever it is. I love learning that lesson. Point 25. How should you perceive perception? 50 goes into how you should never, ever, ever overplay your hand. I am a poker player. I don't play as often as I'd like, but I like the idea that sometimes you can bluff a hand, but usually you're not going to win a lot of your games of poker by continuing to bluff. You should have something at some point, and you should never overplay your hand. And 50 didn't do that with stars. Curtis didn't do that with G-Unit, but he does talk about times that he may have overplayed his hand, but that was that version of him. And it's cool hearing somebody talk about how you shouldn't overplay your hand and the things that could come from that. Love point 25. Jeez, gotta get in the shade and stay in the shade. The reason I'm not showing my face on this point is because 50 goes into something that I feel is private. And I don't think you should see anyone's face when I'm making this point. This is point number 26. He went into a relationship that he had with someone famous, Chelsea Handler. He spilled some tea, yes, but it's not any tea, from what he said in the book, that she hasn't shared publicly herself. So me telling you that 50 had a relationship, I cannot say to what degree, I cannot say how fond they still are of each other, but I can say 50 had nothing but good things to say about Chelsea in the book. And he realized something about himself, that Chelsea Handler was a woman that he could see himself with because she, in a way, made him better. Now you think about 50 Cent. I mean, I'm a guy as well, and he's a man of much fame and fortune. And he could just, I don't know, goofy model after goofy model after goofy model. He could do that. Or he could go for something a little bit more, a little bit better for himself, and that is someone maybe on the caliber of a Chelsea Handler. And that's a really humbling thing to say, because consider 50 Cent or Curtis Jackson, whatever your pleasure. He doesn't have to say anything positive about another human being. He's already at the top, you could say, of his class. Why does he have to shout out someone like Chelsea Handler? Well, because I think 50's ego actually might be a lot smaller than we think. Or maybe his ego is really big, but his humbleness is also big. So when you think about that, think about 50 and I believe Chelsea Handler may be about his age or older. Chelsea Handler may be older than 50 Cent. So him even being open to engaging in a relationship with a woman, and let's be honest, we see what's going on in America right now. Him publicly speaking about him being in a relationship with a white woman. I really don't care, but I know a lot of people do. But that's something public that he didn't have to say. He didn't have to say that he admired this woman. He didn't have to say that he sort of looked up to her, and in a lot of ways, she was better than he was with certain things. What in the world? What sort of openness and humbleness is that? So maybe this point is actually several in one. Wow. He expertly captured the growth and development that a man goes through over the years when he was talking about this. I can certainly attest to that. 50 then went into a story about Prodigy and Jay-Z. And there's something that he said, and I can't really make this point without spoiling too much of it. Prodigy and Jay-Z. Jay-Z was almost dragged into some deep waters. I think this was the time when he mentioned Jam Master Jay, possibly even Nipsey Hussle, but Jay-Z and Prodigy was really the main focal point of what 50 was talking about in this one. It was a very interesting perspective that 50 had there. Man, deep. In this one, after talking about Jay-Z and Prodigy, I'll discuss something that 50 says about his relationship in point 28, the Cool Kid, from 50's view. The perspective I took when reading this and listening to this part of the book left me stunned, absolutely stunned. Sometimes when you're honest with a person about who you are and what you are, might pan out well for you in the end. What I can tell you about what he said about Who Kid, how spoiling it is, 50 was very honest with Who Kid. Let me take that back. Who Kid was very honest with 50 Cent about who he felt he was. 50 Cent said, that's true. So there's a couple things there. 50 obviously fostered an environment and a relationship between him and Who Kid, where Who Kid felt he could be honest with him and maybe even the entourage. 50 then did not unreward or penalize Who Kid for saying who he was, and he in fact accepted him for who he was. Everyone preaches, be honest with me. We tend to think that being vulnerable, honest, or verbalizing your deepest feelings might be the same flaws and vulnerabilities that earn you the equivalent of exile from their lives. But maybe not. 50 goes into what happened, the situation with Who Kid. That was epic. I won't say much more about this point, but don't be neutral in anyone's mind, friend or foe. Read the book to get the profound message, but basically what 50's trying to tell you is, look, be something to people. Don't be the pushover and the hard ass. Be the pushover or the hard ass. But don't be neutral. Don't just be the person that's there. Be the person that adds something or takes something away. Be a friend, be a foe. It's the best way I can say this point. Just stop by Starbucks. It's hot out. Had to grab something. And I forgot a mask. All this COVID stuff. Jeez. Going into Starbucks made me think about competition and how competition can inspire you. That's point 30. Keep what you might even hate or offends you. Keep that close. Maybe use something that you love to hate. Find that and use that as motivation and try to keep it as close to you as possible. Goes into a story about Ferrari and Lamborghini. I won't go much further than that, but we know them as two titans in the auto industry. They really didn't see eye to eye, and one company, in fact, tried to help the other company at one point in time. I can't believe that actually happened. For those of you that have been following 50, point 31 may not be any news to you. 50 talks about who he competes with the most. I won't spoil it for you, but most people do have this answer. I think that person might be my biggest competition as well. It's the only person I can actually measure myself against and control. Point 32. 50 talks about his album release competition with Kanye West. He talks about how, in his perspective, it was actually a healthy competition. He actually helped me understand that Kanye didn't wish him any ill will and he didn't wish Kanye any ill will. His reasons for doing all of those things got him criticized at the time. All the tactics that he took and the things that he said in the media, people, maybe they put into context, maybe they took out of context. This many years later, 50 can talk about big problems or non-problems that actually were going on at the time between him and Kanye. Just because a big and powerful player is in the ring with you and does something one way, and it's amazing. I mean, it's earth-shattering. It's the best move they could possibly make. There still might be a few good moves for you to make yourself. And 50 talked about those. And I mean, when he talked about how coming in second place, how he was able to reshape that and reframe that into a success, which I definitely think that it was, especially after hearing him say it. Wow, talk about turning lemons into lemonade. I think another cool thing 50 taught me in point number 33 is when to disengage from conflict. Sometimes it's not necessarily beneficial for you to remain in a fight, not in a live to fight another day way. Listening to 50 tell it, it's different. It's a value bomb. I just don't have to fight every fight. And it was more of a matter of pragmatism. Why? I'd be fighting forever if I fought every fight. Thanks for reinforcing that, Fifth. This kind of goes back to the failures earlier. You can reshape and reframe your failures and what they mean to you. It's point 34. Kind of like earlier when you guys saw me not having a good time, jumping up those 3 steps, and I just had to reshape it in my mind. I had to say, well, maybe I'm not strong enough. If not, can I get stronger? Maybe I didn't jump hard enough. Should I jump harder? I could have said, man, the years are ticking by. I'm an old man now. I don't got it in me. Or I could reshape and reframe the failure. And I came back and I hit it hard and I succeeded. You guys saw it. And he talks about the L's in the same point because it's about failures. Failing late in life, I'm finding, at least for me, it can be a little bit crippling. If you fail early in life, which we all do, but failing and feeling the failure are 2 different things. Failing and then learning from that failure, I mean fully learning from that failure, there's where the growth is. So fail and learn how to take that L. The L's are tough. Fail young, feel it, and learn. If you're asking what I'm eating, sometimes it's humble pie. 50 talked about that. He says, admit when you're wrong. This is point 35. And I think we all can relate to this. When you imagine that you're driving someplace and you don't know which way to go. You don't want to admit that you're wrong to your passengers. You don't want to let them know that, maybe you made a wrong turn a few miles back. And you guys might be 10, maybe even 20, maybe hours off course because of something that you did wrong. It's okay, because let me tell you from personal experience, every second that goes by that I'm wrong, I'm even more wrong. I'm no less wrong. The moment I say, you know what, guys, I think I made the wrong turn, it changes everything. All of a sudden, everybody's all hands on deck because it's not just me that's lost. I got them lost. That's what happened. They are now lost. I'm lost. They're lost. But now everybody knows it. So everybody's all hands on deck and said, oh, yeah, I was thinking the turnpike, I was thinking it was exit 7, but you took 4. Oh, by the way, we can stop by at Roy Rogers and grab a couple burgers. You see how that works? Just admit when you're wrong, because good things come from it. Manage all aspects of your life as best you can. Point 36. He discusses boxing and the boxing promotion business and money management. Because sometimes you forget that 50 Cent and Floyd Mayweather are, or at least were, very, very, very close friends. The fact that 50 knows this much about this many things is amazing. He goes into a couple of intimate conversations he had with Floyd Mayweather and his perspective on what happened with Mike Tyson and Don King. I mean, the way that he said it, and the way that he put it into words, I'm like, of course, it had to have happened that way. For 50 to know all this stuff about this business, it just shows the depth of knowledge that he has. And, maybe this is point 36.5. Don't be a one-trick pony. 50 knows about business, likely real estate, the music business, partnering with a big company like Vitamin Water. My goodness. It almost is like, what does this guy not know? But at the same time, there's a lot more that he has to learn. He admits it. Those are the keys. But not the keys to my little e-bike motorcycle. Man, I love this thing. She's a lot of fun. Not the keys to that. The keys to managing your surroundings. People's lowest or highest characteristics will affect you. Point 37. I kind of sum it up and I say to people a lot of the time, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. 50 says it in a different way. People's lowest or highest characteristics will affect you. He even advises you to assault. Yes, assault. He says assault a person you may have been hired to help. And I'm like, whoa. Assault a person that I may have been hired. This person's paying me and I'm going to assault them. And somehow he broke that down too. I hope my vagueness pushes you to listen to the book. Yeah, assault a person I've been hired to help. Point 38. I could apply this with my family, relationships, kids. Understand fully that you don't have the same ideals and perspectives on life that you do. This may be your mom. She may think you should go to college. You may not think that's the best move for you. It may be your dad. He may think that you should join the military. You may not think that's the right thing for you. And just understand, sometimes ideals and perspectives and goals don't line up. Personally, I'm a striver first. Things that may be a bit too high for me or a little bit technically out of reach. I mean, I just can't get there. Sort of like jumping up on that step earlier, like a dumbass. It's fun though. I mean, I know I can do it. I know if I see 3 steps, getting up on top. I'm just saying. But when I can't do something, I go into the lab and try to figure it out. And I try to figure out, what can I do to close the gap in knowledge or capability, or at least evaluate the likelihood that I could attain that goal. Listening to this book, I feel the way in which I'm moving through life might be a good direction. 50's doing it. He's crazy successful. So I may as well try to as well. Great point 39. 50 goes deep into one of the exact reasons why he and his firstborn son don't speak. And I've got a son. 1. It's tragic and scary, this story. This part of the book is where 50 discusses his thoughts on entitlement. All I can say is, 50, I've got one son, and I cannot imagine how I feel if my son did what you say your son did to you. I understand how some of your emotional strengths and calluses were developed from that story. That will definitely harden you. And point 40. I now consider him, whether he considers me this or not, he's my big brother and my mentor. He doesn't need to know it, and my father literally is a terrible person. And I know my father well. He's been in my life all of my life. 50 never met his dad. I almost am jealous of the absence of a father that 50 had. I know that's just me sitting where I'm sitting, having what I consider to be a horrible father. But the absence that 50 had Knowing what I'd have as a father, I'm a little jealous. I know it must have been painful for 50 at some point. He never got to play catch in the front yard or experience that loving paternal hand on his shoulder after missing the game-winning free throw. He never knew his dad. But trust me, growing up knowing your father and knowing he chose not to provide love from places of strength and guidance and ultimately wants to see you hurt and wounded is something I wish I didn't have in my rearview mirror. 50 didn't have to run from his father as he chased him with a pool cue. That was me. That was all while my girlfriend and my 1-year-old son were there to witness it. He didn't have to hold his father upright as he missed the toilet with his piss, trying to prevent him by passing out and making a larger alcoholic drunken mess. He didn't have to say, "Dad, hold your head back," as blood came pouring out of his nose like a waterfall. It's like a sieve that night. Sometimes missing out on a father is better than having a bad one. So 50, I don't know if you should consider yourself blessed, but I know you wouldn't change a thing because you said as much. Fathers, sons, they're difficult relationships, that's for sure. The blame game. Evaluate blame and how you and others handle it. What role might you have played in the loss you just experienced? Just because others may have been involved, it may be the actual cause of your pain. In point 41, 50 advises us on how we can focus primarily on the solutions that are within your control. Because you can play tug of war and tell yourself this and tell yourself that about everything. Like, oh, it's her fault because she did this or said this. Oh, wait, no, it's his fault because he just did this thing too. Not really. I mean, what can I control? I can control only what I can control. Instead of focusing on the blame that you can place on either yourself or someone else, just take your time and say, look, this is what's in my control, so here's what I'll do. And I think that's what separates the successful, like 50 or Curtis. Guess from here on out, I'm just focusing on solutions. Where you start doesn't necessarily define who you are or where you'll end up. 50 also goes into entitlement and resentment in point 42. She's sweet. She's getting me around town. I mean, I got a car too, but something about this little electric putt-putt makes life fun. Just a little something to do. That's my blue baby. We named her Sonic. I like to categorize people in 2 ways. Either you're a giver or you're a taker, especially in relationships. Seriously. When a woman gets pregnant, I mean, it is literally a parasitic relationship with the child. The child is a taker and the mother is the giver. That's it. She's got the resources, the baby needs it. Done. But I think some of us don't ever grow out of that. Some of us give, some of us take. 50 categorizes it a little bit differently. Sort of like a bank account. They have deposits or they make withdrawals to your life. And who are you? What sort of person are you? Are you the type of person that makes deposits into someone's life, or do you make withdrawals? You can use mine, givers or takers, but I like 50s. Deposits and withdrawals. Takers, when they come through, there's only less there when they're gone. Point 44 dovetails nicely into that one. 50 goes into a lesson in why you should cut people off. Not how you should cut them off, but why. I thought it was pretty profound. Profound enough for it to make this list. 44. Let's head on to number 45. Number 45, know your value and be a person that makes the deposits. Learn how to value different types of deposits people make in your life. And I think that also goes into sort of the reframing the perspective thing, because I think that even though I said everything that I said about my father, the deposits he made in my life, I could have maybe not learned from them. And I could have become a person that allowed myself to continuously be abused by others. That would have been tough, very tough, because that would have set me down a path of being used and abused and disrespected. And you could very easily go down that path. So just understand the gifts that people are giving you. I think that's what 50 was trying to tell me. I don't know what he may try to tell you as you listen to them. Reframe the failure. Take in every ounce of what's happening in your surroundings and see how you can turn it to your favor. Because no one's really going to look out for you other than you. So what should I do for my father that wishes me ill? Obviously, I keep him at a distance. 2, I may prepare myself if we were to have an interaction, which obviously would not be pleasant. I could actually not dwell on it. After I've taken every precaution, done everything that I could do in my power, after that, I just need to let the chips fall where they may. And then when I realized that, I just became so comfortable. It's like there was just a weight lifted from my shoulders. I just didn't have to worry about it anymore.
Whoa.
Because he was gonna do what he was gonna do. And now, I gotta do what I've gotta do. So it made the decision easy. No guesswork. After reading this book, my 50th reason, I couldn't come up with one. There was so much there, so much that I can't forget, so much that I'll never forget, that I have no choice but to try to take a look at the 50 things that I must have missed.
For years, people have been encouraging me to pen a self-help book, even waved a couple big checks in my face. I always passed. Not that I didn't come close a few times. I even got as far as co-authoring one, The 50th Law, with the great Robert Greene. But still, I never felt comfortable with writing my own. I just didn't like the idea of presenting myself as an expert on life. That may sound strange coming from one who has never been shy at telling you how much money he has, how many records he sold, or TV shows he's produced. Yes, I've been comfortable sharing my success publicly. But privately, I'm sensitive to the fact those accomplishments haven't made my life all the way right. There are many things I fucked up. Money, relationships, opportunities, friendships, you name it. I've absolutely failed as many times as I've succeeded. Which ultimately is the very reason I finally decided to write a book